Thank you, Dan. So allow me to elaborate a little bit on some of the activities of my office, the apps office. You may find some of those activities useful as you start developing some of your research activities. Many of you have already been using these services, but I wanted to highlight some of them today. Our offices provide individual consultations with faculty. We can help you peer review your proposal prior to its submission to funding agencies. We organize workshops and forums like this one here today, and we have a travel program that provides some support to faculty who are interested in visiting organizations that support research activities. We hope you'll visit our website if you haven't already done so at www.rfcuny.org. Okay, enough advertisement for our office. So I want to elaborate a little bit on this event and put it in context. Why are we doing this today? Why is this important? Let me just start out by saying international and collaborative research can be extremely rewarding and productive. Its advantages come in conceptual benefits and pragmatic gains. Let me first talk about the benefits. By referring to a frog deep in a cave, okay? If a frog is living in a cave that never comes out, it can only see an extremely circumscribed patch of skies, there are limitations regarding its ability to understand the world, okay? The metaphor applies to research too. If one's research is predominantly done in one country, one cave, then this might be to the detriment of the field of study. Okay? We know that when research is done using teams that are homogeneous, they are generally filled with harmonious discussions that generate fewer discoveries. Heterogeneous teams are far more contentious, spending a lot of time explaining the obvious to other team members, but in the process discover that their research outcomes were not so obvious after all. Heterogeneous teams force team members to clarify their conceptualizations, ultimately leading to better research, better theoretical clarity. What we're doing here today is encouraging you to get out of your deep and comfortable caves and enlarging your perspectives by networking and engaging internationally. And then there are pragmatic gains. In many instances, science cannot advance without international collaboration because those collaborations permit access to unique research assets, ranging from scientific phenomenon, such as rising sea levels. You need to be a coastal country to experience rising sea levels, to volcanoes, Pacific Rim comes in mind, to flora, unique flora and fauna, including distinctive human and animal populations. Sometimes the research requires access to facilities like accelerators or large telescopes that are only available in certain countries. Other times the data or the samples cut across nations and maybe even continents. So finally, there's one simple imperative, that building strong collaborations across boundaries actually works. My previous position at, my previous tenure at NSF taught me one thing, at least one thing, that parachute research, descending on a country, getting samples, and taking them to your home country to analyze them does not work. Why is that? Because without local collaborators, not only is the research process more difficult, but the lack of involvement from local talent compromises the quality, analysis, and the interpretations of the data. Okay? So there are clearly, I don't want to simplify this whole process, there are many challenges and even obstacles in forming and sustaining international collaborations. And a lot of effort and investments and upfront time in developing these collaborations. However, I can safely say with confidence that international research collaborations far surpass the alternative of limiting one's perspective to one's own country. Your own limited cave is not going to work. One of the best ways to advance the quality of your contributions and outcomes is by collaborating internationally. And if you're not already doing so, we hope that this forum stimulates you to do so. So let's talk a little bit, now that I've made my pontificated about international collaboration, I want to talk a little bit about the forum agenda. I've invited a distinguished panel of individuals representing research agencies from various countries to be here with us today. Their bios are in the packets that were given to you when you registered at the registration table. Our foreign panel will come up individually to introduce themselves and provide a little more information about their role in the organizations they represent, describe a little bit the research interests of their countries that they represent. It'll be a very, very short introduction to you, 5 to 7 minutes. They will be presenting more in-depth presentations in the afternoon breakout sessions. Many of you have asked me, how were the countries represented here today selected? As some of, I have worked previously with all the organizations that are here today. The selections were based on my previous experience with them, the size of their research establishments, and the reliability and strength of those partnerships. So I can say without any doubt that these countries and the individuals that are here today are some of the best and the most respected in the world. Partnerships with faculty from the countries represented here today invariably lead to productive, rewarding, and successful collaborations. So after our introductions by our foreign representatives, will be followed by a presentation from the Deputy Director of the National Science International Office, Sam Howerton, who will be here today. In fact, the office I worked at before I left NSF. Sam came to NSF right after I departed, so I'm meeting him here today for the first time. And Sam, thank you for coming down and doing a presentation. NSF plays a very leadership role in this whole area, and your expertise is important. He'll be followed by Victoria Bodranova, who's representing the European Union, and will discuss the challenges of navigating through the EU research programs that are quite extensive and sometimes can be complicated. So Victoria can provide us with a little bit of information about how to navigate those challenges and those complexities. Sam is laughing because we've had to deal with a lot of institutions, and the EU is big. There are a lot of countries that are involved, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done before you engage with the EU. Victoria will shed some light on that. Then we'll take a 15-minute break, and we'll have presentations from the 3 CUNY faculty who are PIs on the large international projects: Masahiro Kawaji from City College, Michael Merkin from Queens College, and Sunil Bhaskaran from Bronx Community College. At 12:30, we'll break for lunch, and we'll come back at 2 p.m., where you'll head straight for the breakout sessions. The students, if you're a student, please come back to this auditorium. Sam will be doing a presentation. We'll be talking to the students about developing collaborations and international research. It was Sam who actually recommended that we have a breakout session for students. All too often, the students get short shrift in these kinds of events. So students, come back to the auditorium. At 3:30, we'll regroup in the auditorium where the moderators of those breakout sessions will report back to everyone on their sessions. And from 5 to 6, we kept this at the end so that you don't leave us, network reception right outside the auditorium doors, right in the hallway. Administrators, faculty, and graduate students are invited to attend the reception. So those are kind of my comments on the organization of the forum. What I'd like to do now is invite individually some of the foreign reps who will introduce themselves to you. And let me start out with Minh Pham from France.
Thank you, John, and the organizers for inviting me. I'm very proud of being here today to introduce some of our tools to facilitate the cooperation between the United States and European countries, among which France. So my name is Minh Pham. I'm currently the Counselor for Science and Technology at the Embassy of France in the United States, located in Washington, D.C. My background as a scientist is in neurobiology and agronomy. and my research work dealt with learning and olfaction in the honeybees. I'm a bee person. And I have been involved in national and European programs on the impact of GMOs and insecticides on the behavior of honeybees. And you all know that it's still a problem, including in the United States. After more than 20 years of research as a researcher, I moved to the management of research and to international cooperation support. I was in charge of structuring agreements between CNRS and its partner over the world. And you probably know that CNRS is one of the main research institutions in France, covering all fields of research from physics to social science and humanities. I was first specialized in cooperation with the Asia-Pacific region, and then I became the head of the international office of CNRS, covering this collaboration in all fields and everywhere in the world. I also spent some time as the international director of a network of technological university, what we call in France, grandes écoles, very competitive universities, where I was in charge of increasing the attractiveness of these universities, which are not very well known abroad, towards international students. So I have the experience of bringing scientists together, researchers, but also students. And 4 years ago, I was appointed as the scientific counselor at the Embassy of France in the United States. And this office is and the Embassy of France in the United States. It's the biggest French diplomatic representation in the world. The Office of Science and Technology at the Embassy is in charge of bringing together scientists from both sides of the Atlantic and to develop the attractiveness of French science and technology. So we support the mobility of students and researchers and in all ways of bringing together these scientists and students. So in my presentation this afternoon, I will give you an overview of the French ecosystem of higher education, research and innovation, as well as an overview of the programs that we implement in France, between France, Europe and the United States, as well as our own programs implemented by the Embassy to encourage transatlantic cooperation. Thank you very much for your attention.
I'd like to invite Rainer Grulich, who's the new director of the North America office of the DFG, German Research Foundation.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Thanks to John and to the organizers for being here today, for inviting me. It's a great pleasure, my first time at CUNY, in fact. I've been in charge of the DFG in North America, as John just indicated, for only 2 months. So I've been in office since September 1st. I'm the director of the North America office of the German Research Foundation, which is based in Washington, D.C. and New York City. And these 2 first months have provided me with some challenge to cover both locations and just return from Montreal. So it keeps me busy traveling these days. Prior to becoming the director of the DFG's North America office, I've been in charge of North America at the DFG's head office back in Germany, in Bonn, for the past 5 years. And I believe that for those of you who have the bio in front of you, you probably know already that I've been involved in international research cooperation for quite some time. I'm a historian by training. I did my PhD in modern German history. I spent times in England and in the United States as a student, did a master's in medieval history. That's quite some time ago, and I've become involved in international academic exchange, I should say, ever since my return from the States. I worked for the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, which is one of the more important funding organizations when it comes to exchange of academics and researchers in Germany for quite some time. And since 2012, I'm with the German Research Foundation. The German Research Foundation is the largest research funding organization in Germany for basic research. We fund research projects primarily at German universities, which I will talk about more in detail later on. One of the special characteristics of the German landscape, the German research landscape, but probably also of the German Research Foundation, is that we have strong funding organizations for different areas of science. The German Research Foundation caters for basic research, blue sky or curiosity-driven research only, and you probably have heard of the Fraunhofer Association that caters to more the applied side of research. You've all heard of the Max Planck organization, the Max Planck Society that has institutes which perform basic research. The German Research Foundation funds projects in all the sciences and the humanities. That's different from most science funding organizations in the world. We do not fund projects in the arts, but we do fund projects in philosophy as much as we fund projects in microbiology. And in line with that is the mission that we believe in the value of basic research, that we believe that in 40 years from now, we don't know what will come out of a research project. We don't ask for immediate impact that should come out of our research projects, but we believe that researchers know best in the end what their research is good for, and the peer review process, of course, that every project proposal undergoes guarantees the quality of our research. The DFG is deeply committed to international collaboration. Obviously, the United States and North America as a whole is one of the more important focus areas of researchers when they think about international collaboration. We have had offices abroad for quite a number of years. The North America office is the oldest office. It was founded in 2002 in Washington and 2007 here in New York City, and we're located in the German house. These offices facilitate the contact between researchers in the United States and in Canada and researchers in Germany. We work closely together with our partner organizations such as the NSF, where John and I met a couple of years ago, and I will talk later briefly about the agreements, the various agreements we have currently in place with the National Science Foundation, for example, which also might provide opportunities for you to come to Europe and specifically, of course, to Germany. So I'm looking forward very much to the exchange today. Thank you again for the invitation, and yeah, pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I should say that Germany actually, when you look at science and engineering, is one of our largest, in the U.S., largest partner in collaborative activity in science and engineering. So it's a very important country. I'm glad that Rainer could join us here today. So another country that's significant in terms of science and engineering investments is Japan. So I'd like to invite Takahiro Fujino to talk to us about Japan.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Takahiro Fujino, Deputy Director of Japan Society for the Promotion of Science, Washington office. We usually call ourselves JSPS instead of the unabbreviated name of our organization. So I'd like to use JSPS instead of rather long name of our organization. So first of all, I'd like to express my sincere appreciation to the leadership of and the colleagues of City University of New York for inviting me to the first International Forum on Research and Education. It's my honor to come here to this important event and meet all of you as a Japanese representative. In JSPS Washington office, I'm working to promote research collaboration between US and Japan through activities such as sponsoring and organizing academic symposium and advertising of our fellowship program for researchers who want to visit Japan, and forming and maintaining network between former JSPS fellows and JSPS. Further, in my role, I maintain close relationship with our US counterpart agencies as NSF, NIH, SSRC, the Department of Energy, among others. Also, our office has friendly working relation with the AAAS and various scientific societies. Prior to my current role, I had been working at the JSPS's Tokyo headquarters for 17 years and had some experience in planning and administering research grant programs, providing research fellowships for young researchers and graduate students, and organizing international meetings for academic exchange. JSPS is the oldest and the largest research funding agency in Japan, which was founded in 1932 by an endowment from the Emperor of Japan. JSPS supports academic research both across all fields of natural science, social science, engineering, and humanities. In fiscal year 2017, our budget is $3 billion. JSPS funds 80,000 research projects of researchers at Japanese institutions, regardless of their nationality, and provide research fellowships for 6,000 postdocs and doctoral students, and supports 10,000 researcher exchange between Japan and other countries. Since the joint statement between the US President and Japanese Prime Minister in 1961, many governmental agreements have been made between both countries regarding scientific collaboration. Under these agreements, research collaboration have been made in various specific fields, including space science, oceanographic research, energy, life science, material science, brain science, and most recently, big data and disaster research. But not only those specified areas, research collaboration between US and Japan is being made in every research areas, including social science and humanity. And the mission of JSPS is to support those collaborations. In this afternoon, I'm going to touch upon the topics such as general landscape of science and technology in Japan, types and roles of research funding agency in Japan, and introduction to JSPS's funding program, which might be beneficial to you. I look forward to have your participation regardless of your field of research. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Takahiro. So, I'd now like to invite Berit Jone, who's a special advisor for international cooperation in the Research Council of Norway.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for an excellent pronunciation of my name. You have a partner who tells you something about that. I'm really happy to be here, to be invited to this important event. And my name is Berit Jone, Special Advisor at the Research Council of Norway. I work with international cooperation, and I have done for many years. I spent 4 years in Washington, D.C. as the science counselor. I've also spent 2 years seconded by the Research Council to Brussels, working with international collaborations, in particular oceans and joint programming. And my professional background before that is immunology, cell biology, biotechnology in academic and industry research. I've also worked in the Research Council with strategic foresight processes and various programming for biotech and for international collaboration these days. There's a special program on collaboration opportunities and partnerships that I'll come back to in detail later on. The Research Council in Norway is one research council. Several years ago, various funding agencies were merged, so now we're one from basic science and even funding industry. So we are 4 divisions doing that. We represent close to 1/3 of Norway's funding for public funding for research, and of course has a high attention to international collaboration. As a small country, that's part of everyday science. We work as an associated country to the European Union. We work with the US and other non-European countries through all, but we are full members of the Horizon 2020 and the research programs in the EU. And we work with the US and other countries through the EU tools and instruments, as well as bilaterally, as you will hear more about tomorrow. Our country is small, but has a long coast and vast ocean areas. So our competencies and focus on research is a lot about engineering and oil and gas, oceans, aquaculture, but also, and polar and Arctic is high on our agenda with the United States and most other countries, I should say, where the Svalbard archipelago is an infrastructure for a lot of that. But biomedicine, global health, public health, biotech is also on our agenda. You asked about, and also innovation and business development from research is where we want to learn and exchange and work with the US, of course. And then tomorrow I'll just give you some more details about this, and in particular on opportunities for exchange at various levels for students and faculty, and how we can work together. And I'll just want to mention one example. I've known John from NSF from way back, and finally we, the Research Council, joined the PIRA program in NSF, and out of the 14 successful projects this year, Norway is a partner in 2, and one of these is a project that you will hear more about later. Very interesting, and I'm really happy about that. So looking forward to talk to you tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay. So my wife is Norwegian, so I have to pronounce these names correctly, you know, otherwise I get myself into trouble. Now, straight from Madrid is David Gonzalez Martinez, who's the Deputy Director General of Coordination Institution of European Affairs at the Research and Innovation, the Ministry of Economy and Industry and Competitiveness. Thank you, David, for coming.
Good morning. Well, I want to thank you, John and Ingrid, for their help for me to be here and take this long plane. It's 4 o'clock in Madrid, so it's quite good for me. I'm also interested in attending all the sessions this afternoon, but it will not be possible for me as I have to be speaking in one. I want to acknowledge the Research Foundation, obviously, and the CUNY for bringing us here. When John invited me, I was part of the State Research Agency, so the agency in Spain responsible for funding the projects, but I got promoted a few weeks ago, so now I work for the ministry. So in my presentation this afternoon, you will hear about policies in Spain down to funding projects in Spain. I was an undergraduate student who had the opportunity to to do his PhD between Spain and France. I got a Leonardo da Vinci Fellowship, and I know CNRS very well, and I'm grateful for the organization. For me, it was the first experience outside the country, working in science. Then I did a postdoc in the UK at University College London for 5 years, and then in Belgium at the Fonds National de la Recherche Scientifique, and it was a great experience as an academician. Then I also worked in international cooperation in science. I work at the Spanish Embassy in Brazil, so I have that point of view as well, how to establish collaborations with other countries. Then I decided that I wanted to go back to my country because I miss it so much, and I did project and program management at the Spanish Research Council. It's an organization, it's a research performing organization, very similar to CNRS or Max Planck in Germany. And so I was like the link between researchers and launching proposals and solicitations to the European Union and to the National State Program in Spain. And then I started to work in strategy. I like it. I tried to do this kind of stuff at the Spanish Research Council, and I had the opportunity to work at the ministry. The ministry in the last few years has changed a lot because we passed into a ministerial structure to an agency, and now I'm back to the ministry. But in there, we run the national calls. So we were responsible of funding projects at the international level through joint programming, as my colleague from Norway explained briefly, and also how to support those international projects with national funds. And also, and this is when I met John, making Spain to sign an agreement with NSF to participate in the pilot program. So I have this view. Then, because I don't want to stay longer than 2 years or 3 years in one job, I got a fellowship from the Robert Bosch Foundation in Germany, and I work at the cabinet of the Minister of Science in Portugal. I don't know if you know the structure in Portugal, but it's really interesting, very modern. And I worked there for 1 year. And then 2017, I came back. I continued working in my unit in several joint programming initiatives and national calls. And I've been now invited to work for the Director General of Research, Development and Innovation Policy. My objective here is to, as I told you, present the government structure. So how Spain funds research in all scientific fields through different tools, from projects to personal fellowships and other promotion activities in order to internationalize the Spanish system of science. I also expect to create some links with CUNY and other funding agencies here in order to promote this relationship of Spain with other international partners. For me, national in Europe means now the Horizon 2020 program. The international for me now is the States, Latin America, Asia. This is what we have to work in Spain, and I would like to create some links here. And I think that is all. As I told you, I think I can bring this experience of academician and working in project funding and now on a strategic and policy level. So I would like to explain this afternoon. I'm really looking forward to speak to you along the day. Thank you very much.
Okay, last but not least, I'd like to invite Simon Marty from the Embassy of Switzerland.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, John, and the organizers for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here this morning with you and also the afternoon. I'm heading the Science, Technology, and Higher Education Office at the Embassy of Switzerland to the United States in Washington, D.C. By training, I'm a political scientist. I actually spent some time here in this city. I did my postdoc at Columbia University in political science a couple of years ago. In my previous function and my home ministry, the Swiss Ministry for Science and Education, I was in charge of government research funding and also with the relations, our relations with the OECD, centering on education. So this afternoon, I will introduce you a little bit to opportunities for American researchers, for PIs, but also for doctoral students and even younger, or even for students in the bachelor level. On the bachelor level, we have opportunities for short-time research stays in Switzerland. So I will introduce you to 4 different programs run by our National Science Foundation. Some of them are in Switzerland, when American researchers will go to Switzerland, but some of them are also project cooperations with Swiss researchers where people would actually stay here in the United States. And as I'm also representing my home ministry, not only the Swiss National Science Foundation, I will also introduce you to 2 mobility programs run by my home ministry for PhD students and postdocs, but also for undergraduate students already. So it's a great pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to our session this afternoon. Thank you very much.